we're continuing on unit 6, page 14 in the printed pages, page 11 on the website. Don't ask me how that happens. Very strange. I don't understand it. So like this, there's a great Gemara in Sanhedrin. It's a great story, Chazieh, but you have to know a bit of Hebrew to appreciate it. So I hope you all know enough Hebrew for this. Chazieh lo gavra dava kasach bekarmel. There's a guy who was using his shears, right? I don't know how to word kasach, pruning, okay? Pruning in his vineyard. Amar lehen kohen v'zamar, because there's what was it called? We're prejudiced against Kohanim. We assume that Kohanim don't keep mitzvot lod baaretz because they say, yeah, we own, right? We own all the mitzvot lod baaretz. Trumad Masra, that's all ours anyway. So so don't take dinei mitzvot lod baaretz seriously, right? So it's so when they see someone not keeping mitzvot lod baaretz, they say, oh, he's a Kohen. I see what's happening. Shout out to Elon. Yeah. Anyway. Anyway. So he says, Kohen v'zamar. So it's a Kohen doing his pruning here, yes? Amar lo, yachol lomar le'akal beit habad nitzarich. Meaning maybe he needs the vines themselves for his beit bad, for his olive press. Amar, not for the big.
Not for the olives, but just he needs
the wood. No, this is a vineyard. There won't be olives in vineyard, I think. But
using the wood to build.
He's using they used us. So someone I actually wrote about this, and someone I wrote about this on the website. I wrote I write every weekly piece every week, a little thing. Chamdat Yomim. I don't know if you guys get it. So I wrote about this, and someone wrote back. I'll explain how this works. You have a beit bad, you have the olive press, and then the oil and all the schmutz goes to another place. And what they used to do is they used to take those sticks to allow that some kind of sieve. They actually use the vines. They actually use vines. We actually found an archaeological sites or something. Elon, you might
to unclog it.
So the dregs don't go through. That's the akal beit habad. Now, so he says, all right, well, halev yodea im le'akal kalot, right? Only he knows, is this done for the akal or akal kalot? Now, I don't have a good, so I should ask my wife. She's a great translator for these kind of things, how to do the same kind of wordplay in English, right? So I don't even know how to say akal in English, so yeah. Akal is that basket, that thing, that sieve, right? Or is he doing like kalkalot? I think you'll understand, right? Kids, or is he doing this right or not? Now, the assumption would be, well, yeah, messing around, yeah. So now, yeah, okay. So the point is now, so it seems like this. If he really is cutting it for the wood, that's fine, right? Because Rish Lakish here. Lakish says, yeah, sure. Oh, in that case, fine. I'm not convinced, or right. That seems to be the conversation. But it seems that if you're cutting it for the wood, that's fine, right? Now, question: is he cutting it in the way that will also enhance the growth? They also encourage new growth. What do you guys think? What? Okay, so it's pruning. No, because it depends on how you cut, where you cut. Now, do you think he was doing it in a way that will encourage growth? Otherwise, it's the chiddush, right?
Do we think he's saying?
Bring a better raya? No, you're right, but I think there's an even better raya. Sure. Come on, man. Yeah. Well, Halev Yoda seem okay. So see, Halev Yoda. It sounds well. The akal kalot part sounds even more, but Halev Yoda seems to imply a few things. Number one, that if his intention really is for the wood and he does not care about the pruning aspect of it, it's fine, right? It also seems to imply that we have no way of identifying whether it was done to encourage growth or not, which means he cut it in a way that does encourage growth. It must be he was cutting in a way that would encourage growth. So just botanically, right? Definitely would encourage growth. Otherwise, you say, why halev yodah? Just go over and look. He said, he's cutting it in a weird way. No, that's not, can't be, right? So it seems to indicate that he cut it dafka in a way that would encourage growth, right? Let's see the Tosfot. See the Tosfot later on the page, or maybe on the next page, because everything's messed up. I really don't understand. I sent these pages to be printed, and you got those pages. I'm totally perplexed. Anyway, say Tosfot. לעקל בית הבד אני צריך, קשה. בכל מקום מה בכך? בכל מקום, הווה משביח הכרם, דאח ימרן פרק גלל גדול, אז הוא אומר וצריך להצים חייב שתיים, משום קוצר משום נוטע, הכנה מלחייב משום עבודת נוטע. Right? In the end, there's a psikresha. That's what Tosfot would say, right? In the end, if you are achieving both, and clearly he was achieving both, it's still on Shabbos, this would be usher, right? Now, say Tosfot, יש לומר, דאביד לי באותו עניין, דוודאי קשה לי. לכן חבר משום נוטע כדברים לגבי שבת. בשביל דין אסור לקחת למשביח הקרקע, אבל הקשיא לי לעץ, וכי היי גב נשארי, meaning Tosfot say, it must be, since we do have a halacha of psikresha, it must be that he was cutting in a way that would not enhance the growth. Now, why do Reish Lakish say halev yodah? Could he just see, as opposed to saying no? As opposed to saying, I mean, you can say, well, it depends on how he's cutting it, right? If he's cutting it in the correct way, right, or in the incorrect way, right? That's first of all, right? Because Tosfot talking about an incorrect way of cutting, incorrect botanically, right? Why did Reish Lakish say? It sounds like he's saying only the hard nose. Now he might say what Rafi pointed out before. It must say only the hard nose. The hard nose is in here. We're walking by. We're 100 meters away. We say, hey, what's going on there? He says, well, he'll know. He could come up close and have a good look, but he won't. He's not going to bother. It very well may be that he just wasn't going to bother. But Tosfot isn't implying, right? We said the implication of halev yodah means there's no outward way, right? There's no way of knowing just by looking on. So it's saying, no, there is a way of knowing, but you just have to understand the vineyard well, and you have to look carefully, and he just wasn't going to do it. So he didn't happen to know. Yeah, either wasn't going to bother, maybe he doesn't know so much about vineyards, whatever it is. But he says halev yodah doesn't really mean that it depends on where his heart is, or right, his head is, right? We would say where his head is, not his, right? What his intention is the important point. It's not a matter of the intention is what's going to make the decree. It does depend on whether it's being cut right. If it's cut right, correct botanically, that's an issur anyway, said Tosfot, right? All right. Now, the thing is that there seems to be already a Mishnah about this. The Mishnah says, so a person wants to put up a fence, so he's cutting the bamboo, right? So Rabbi Yossi Agrili says, well, cut in such a way that isn't the correct way, cut not in the proper place. Rabbi Akiva says, just cut whatever, right? So it very much sounds like this would be a machloket between the Tanaim. The Maharit is one tshuva that everyone quotes in 16 different sugyot, because it's very like this. He was asked about allowing tulei meshi, forgetting my words, silkworms. Silkworms, is that a word? Okay. Silkworms eat what's best for silkworms? The strawberry.
Mulberries.
Right. The leaves specifically. Now, there are lots of questions. So are you allowed to? What?
Mulberry.
Well, Ilan says that, yeah, the mulberry leaves apparently, the strawberry leaves, the berry leaves, leaves. I'm very impressed. Like, never heard of that, but until I saw this Maharit. But So berry leaves are apparently very, very good for them. The problem is that then there are a whole bunch of questions. The question of would this qualify as, would the leaves themselves have Kedushat Shvit because it's something you can be feeding to your animals and you do. Would that impose a chumrah on other people who aren't? Question of when they eat the leaves, that could ruin the fruit, and also the berries, and also they themselves might ruin the berries. This is also a problem of Kedushat Shvit. A whole list of questions, and it is broken up into many. You can break the tshuva up into many different aspects, and he has many interesting points about them. Now, one question he was asked is, if you put the worms there on your berry bush, and now they're going to eat the leaves, and then there'll be new sprouting, that would effectively be pruning, right? Grama, yes, but it would still be grama that you do intend on happening, right? You did put them there in order to eat the leaves. It's not that I put the worms there and do whatever you want. I'm doing it in order for that to happen. Apparently, that's what they thought. No, so that's one way of looking at it. But they were asking a better question of, what am I allowed to cut the leaves to feed the worms? Right? That would make more sense, right? Am I allowed to cut the leaves to cut the leaves to feed the worms? That was their question. So he says, "אין לפקפק מטעם שכשחותכים בים הללו גדלים אחרים תחתיהם ואיכא משום זמירה, ליתא דאילו כשגוזז עלין הללו, אין כוונתו לו לצורך עלין אלו, שהוא נוטל, אף על גב דממילא גד לאחרין ישרי." Just like it says in Sanhedrin, in the story, right? I'm skipping to the end, the next part of the paragraph. אבל במילתא דמוכח שאין כוונתו אלו לצורך מה שקוצץ, לא חי שמאי דגד לי אחר כך, בוודאי שרי, דתנן פרק רביעים, זנב הגוונים והקוצץ קנים, וכולי, that's a מחלוקת. So he says, we see Rabbi Akiva says, קוצץ כדרכו. So what is Tosfot talking about? Tosfot talking about Merit Ayin. No one knows and no one can tell, and therefore there's a Merit Ayin problem. That's all Tosfot's talking about. But really, also Tosfot know that there isn't really a Psik Reisha problem on Shemitah. Right, so the Maharit explains that really, I guess it's the irony is that he explains the Gemara in a more pshat way than Tosfot, right? Because he says, really, we're not worried about Psik Reisha on Shemitah. As long as it depends on your intention. So we're back to Halev Yodayim Nakal Nakal Kalot. So we go by your intentions. Halev Yodah, that's all we care about, right? Which is, right, I'm saying, you read the pshat of the Gemara says, well, depends on where his head is, right? Depends on what his intention is. Then it doesn't say, well, you can't really say that. And the Maharit says to Tosfot, well, you can't really say that, right? We're back to the pshat of the Gemara, right? Tosfot says it's a maritime thing, and here it's obvious. Here it's evident that you're not cutting the leaves in order to enhance the growth. You're cutting the leaves to feed the worms, right? So, see the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish says, "B'kol makom." He brings also Rabbi Akiva and says if you're pashut if you have no intention, if your head isn't there, if you have no intention of enhancing the growth, so it's not a problem. Right, the same diuk we said before, right? Halev Yodeh means there's no way you could look on and know. You could only, if you could read their thoughts, then you could know if it's usher or not. As long as you can't read their thoughts, there's no way of knowing. Yeshli Tma on the Tosfot, right? Tosfot seems to disagree. Nireh, I'm in the third line. Right, back to the proof we brought before. Why is Halev Yodeh? Because there's no way to look on and know the difference. That's why he has to specifically say, right? Depends on where his head is, right? Where his heart is. כוונתם שכל זימור צריך דקדוק וחוכמה. והרבה מומים יש באילנות שגורמים גירעון בגידולם ופירותיהן. כל זימור שאינו על צד הדקדוק עושה גירעון בפירות. עניין שביעית, כיוון שאין עושים כן, והוא מתכוון לעצים שרים. מתכוון לזימור אסור, והיינו שדאמר הלב יודע. This is an amazing point in the Chazon Ish that on the Lamde in the Chazon Ish is lucky he's not a Rosh Yeshiva because no one give him a pass on this one. But Lamdishly, this is very, very difficult to accept, but it's the Chazon Ish. So, yeah. What's the Chazon Ish saying? He's saying like this. Pruning properly proper pruning is a very, very precise thing. It's a very precise art. If you cut just a bit more to there and the wrong angle, etc., it won't be as effective as the proper botanical way of doing it. We'll see later on that Rav Kook, or earlier on in the page maybe, that Rav Kook went to learn from the field, literally, and was shown that, yeah, there really are different things that will happen if you cut like this or like that, and it is very, very precise, apparently. Again, when we're talking about pruning that's done, I'm not talking about the garden pruning that you just want it to not grow too much and to sprout bit more. I'm talking about where you prune to make your vineyard really, go all out. That's very, very precise. So says the Chazon Ish, if his head isn't in, if he's not thinking about pruning in order to enhance growth, mimele, he won't prune properly. Now, truly, if he does prune properly, it's also okay. But he says that's all Tosfot mean. Tosfot mean pruning is such a precise art, it can't be that he wasn't thinking about it if he was doing it right. So it must be he was doing it wrong. You see why that's very, very lumdishly, you see why it's lumdishly very hard to accept. Right? Because Tosfot said, wait, there's a psikresha. If it's a psikresha, it's a problem. Chazon Ish says, what you mean is if your head is thinking of also of pruning, then you'll be cutting the right way, and that'll be a psikresha. But if you're not thinking about it, it's a psikresha that you won't do it right. Right? That's also lumdishly, we're mixing two different things here. That's why do you keep saying lumdishly? First, you say why lumdishly? Stop, shot Tosfot, just weird, right? But also right, exactly. Because we're talking about the world of psikresha, and Chazon Ish say, yeah, statistically, only 1 in a million you'll actually get it right if you don't intend. Say, okay, and that 1 in a million what? He say that it wasn't psikresha, do it wrong. It's very why?
It's not psikresha. But it's really most of the time you're gonna have a
Right. No, Nahon, that's fine. But the question is, what if the fundamental question of if you do the melacha in a way that does both? Do I say you go by your intentions? Chazon Ish says, yes, we go by your intentions. So why do Tosfot here disagree? Because they say if you did it so precisely, it must be that you also had that in your in mind.
It's precious when something is generally bound.
Inevitable.
Inevitable that way.
Inevitable. And here it's not.
Actually, just cutting that, we're saying that it's not inevitable. It has to be done in a very specific way. It's more likely that it's actually not going to happen that way. So that clearly it goes against the inevitability, and clearly that will go against psikresha. It's not a psikresha.
No, that's fine. But you see how he turned the Tosfot on its head, right? Tosfot says, psikreshas are a problem. And the Chazon Ish says, what he means is pruning specifically is such an act that it can't be that you do it precisely unless you intended on that act, on that outcome.
It says, yeah, I agree with you, but it's not being done the right way. So it's not a psikresha.
Right, but it doesn't sound like that's Tosfot's angle.
Right.
No, you're right. That's what Chazon Ish is saying. I'm just, but okay.
What I'm saying is why.
Well, why?
That's why it doesn't make sense to read it.
Because it shouldn't have gone to. Right. So it should have said, if he was doing it precisely, then it must be that he also intends that. That's it. But it's not even a psikresha. I said, now I understand better what you're saying. It's not even a psikresha thing, because it's an anti-psikresha. it's psikresha usually means I do one thing, but inadvertently something else will happen. They say when it comes to Zmira, you could never really have a psikresha, because either you mean it or you get it wrong, or you'll get it wrong. Right? So you figure. It's a good defining the problem of the love. This is Chazon Ish. That's what we do here. Are you new here? Says the Tiferet Israel. נראה לי דמזנה ואינו כמו מזמר, דילו תמהכי, איך השאר יהיה בעקיביו שכוונתו לעצים. על כל פנים, I'm sorry, ביוצא, next page. על כל פנים, איכא משום מראית עין. ועוד הרי דבר שאין מתכוון, אם הוא פסיק רשע, אסור לכולי העלמא. Does Chazon Ish agree? Right, he's going with the Tosfot, right? Also, the Aruch HaShulchan in the next paragraph, in the next paragraph you have here, right? The Aruch HaShulchan writes, what's he doing? קוצץ כדרכו בקרדום, או במגל ובמגירה, ובכל מה שירצה, ובלבד שלא יתכוון לשם זימור. אין זה פסיק רישא, אם כן, ירד האסור. Right, like Tosfot. Right, if it's a psik reisha that it would enhance the growth, then it would be asur. If inadvertently this will become pruning, you're not allowed to do it. Right? But you'll see the difference. In other words, the Chazon Ish is saying when it comes to grapevines, that has to be very, very precise. Okay, question. What about things that don't need to be so precise? What about bamboo that doesn't need to be so precise? Right? He says to have a whole tefach away because only that'll be enough of a shinui. Right? It won't be psik reisha if it's a tefach away. Yeah, the truth is that, right, you're allowed to do it normally as long as you're not doing it for the sake of pruning. But what about if the pruning doesn't have to be so precise? Here, Chazon and the Chazon Ish would disagree, right? Our Chazon Ish would say, since the pruning ultimately since the pruning doesn't require intention to do the pruning well, doesn't require special intention. So Mimele, if there's an outcome of pruning, that's fine. Right? Our Chazon says no. If there's an outcome of pruning, as in when I say pruning, I mean enhancement of the plant, that would be asur. So that would be the machloket. Now, what? No, but I'm saying, but he agreed. No, he agrees when it comes to grapevine. What about things that don't require such precision? That's my point. Chazon Ish says, you see, it's the anti-psik reisha, right? In other words, if it'll only happen precisely if you really intend on that outcome. Mainly, you can't tell me you're thinking of something else. Right? That's what Chazon Ish should say. Right? Okay. What about if I have, I don't know, if, let's say apple tree doesn't require such precision. Right? I have no idea if that's true. I'm just saying, right? If I have a different tree that I know doesn't require such precision. Anywhere, if you cut anywhere between here and here, it'll be fine. So I'll chop the branch here, whatever, but I'm getting the branch. Or Chazon say that's asur. Chazon says, yeah, then you have no intention. That's fine. I love you there. So now, so Tosfot, if it's read the way that Tiferet Israel, the way Chazon read Tosfot, so that makes sense, right? Just like on Shabbos you have psik reisha, so too on Shemitah you have psik reisha. It all makes sense, right? Why should there not be a psik reisha on Shemitah? If you have psik reisha on Shabbos, why should the halacha be different? Let's see two answers that I think actually kind of build upon each other. The Yeshuat Moshe. Shani Shabbat, Melechet Machshevet Asrat Torah, psik reisha have כאילו חישב גם עלה. מה שאין כן שביעית אי אפשר ללמוד ממנה, זה כל כולה חידוש הוא, רק מלאכות ידועות אסרת תורה. אין לך בא אלא חידושה, דווקא 4 מלאכות ישירות נעשות בכוונה מראש לשם מלאכה זו, אסרת תורה. לא מתייחסות אליו רק על ידי פסיק רישא. פסיק רישא לא מתייחס ממש לעושהו, אף שנעשית בהכרח מכוח מעשיו. בכוח פסיק רישא להוריד שם מלאכה ועבודה אסורה על פעולה נעשית שלא כדרך מלאכתה ועבודתה. So he kind of turns over the whole psik reisha thing. I think what he's saying is a bigger chiddush when it comes to Shabbat, to the definitions of Shabbat, than it comes to Shemitah. I'll explain. On Shabbat, what is the psik reisha asur? So one way that many of the Lamdanim explain the isur of psik reisha on Shabbos is that if the inadvertent outcome of something is a melacha, so you can't say you didn't intend on its outcome because you are aware of what you're doing. Now, if it's not inadvertent, if there could be a different outcome, the different outcome is possible. You can say, well, I didn't know if this outcome will be or not. Fine. But if it's inadvertent outcome, it'll definitely happen. You can't say that you're not aware of it. And awareness is the name of the game when it comes to Shabbos. Because Melech Machshavet Asrat Torah. Now you might say, wait, doesn't Melech Machshavet Asrat Torah usually mean the kula? That if I don't intend, so it's not asur? Is not the way that it usually works? So I'll give you one example of a melacha. The melacha zoreh v'ruach mesayato, right? The zoreh, where you throw your grain up in the air, and all the what's it called? All the chaff. Thank you. All the chaff flies away. You say, wait, but I'm not doing the melacha. I'm just throwing this in the air. I'm not separating the chaff from the. So the Gemara says, that is your intention. You're not doing it, but it is your intention. That's the outcome that you intend on, and therefore it becomes a malacha, even though you didn't really do the actual separation. So there are a few other examples where Melechet Machshevet works against you, right? We know your intention, and therefore an outcome would be, and so too the psi. So he connects that to here and says psik reisha works the same way. Why is psik reisha asur? Because the melach machshavet is the name of the game. You can't say you're not aware of the inadvertent outcome. If it's not an inadvertent outcome, you can say you're not thinking about it. But if it's an inadvertent outcome, you're not. That's all true about Shabbos, but Shemitah, there's no such thing. Shemitah, there's no such definition, and therefore, so the psik reisha thing doesn't happen. So that's the main point in the Yeshuat Moshe. Now, in order to give some chizuk to what he's saying, he says also bear in mind it's not that any agricultural benefit is automatically also during Shemitah. There are only very, very specific ones that are Doraita and they're Drabanans. But we see that to go from Doraita to Drabanan, it has to not be this. So if it's not planting and pruning, possibly a couple of other things we'll learn later on, but if it's not those, it's not included in the melacha. You want to have something? Yes, that's part of, yes. So I don't want to get dragged too much into Hilchot Shabbat. We're going to go back to Hilchot Shabbat from the Shemitah. But Rabbi Amennu, stop laughing. It's a good question when it comes to Hilchot Shabbat. It is true there are other ways of explaining psik reisha that have nothing to do with your mind and have more to do with just attributing the inadvertent outcome to you, and therefore, and yeah, Achronim do say what you're saying, right? Which is the machloket about psik reisha de lo ichpatei, right? The psik reisha that I have no need in, right? Even maybe let's start from lo nichalei, right? The lo ichpatei is even more, but right, the machloket Tosfot and Aruch about psik reisha de lo nichalei, something that. What about you're actually right. So de lo ichpatei. It's not. I have no benefit from it. So if you say that it's all based on melech machshavet, you can't tell me you're ignoring this outcome. Like I don't care about this. I really don't. It really doesn't benefit me. It is a technical malacha that happened, but I'm not interested in that benefit. It has no bearing on my life or my needs. So it's not relevant. What? Right. To grow again. Right. That's right. That would be against your intentions. Correct. So you're saying very good. Even those who say that psik reisha would be asur might say that if it's a psik reisha de lo nichalei, right, against my intentions.
But even if you don't like it, no.
Even what?
It's nichalei because you want it for attention, but still it's
Because I'd want, if I can mow my grass, if I can mow my lawn and never do it again, I'll just maintain this. All right, beseder. So maybe there would be a different distinction between grass, mowing the lawn, and cutting, mowing the lawn, or if I have what is it called? If I have a plant that I want to give a specific shape, or certain right, all kind of things like that, or a fence made out of vines, right? That kind of thing. That kind of thing where I want it to remain this shape. I don't want to change at all. That would be the best kind of right psik reisha de lo nichalei. I don't want the psik reisha, right? I want the grass to stay like this, right? That would be the best outcome there. Let's hear Rav Shaul Israeli. Says Rav Shaul Israeli something fantastic. Could be considered kfira in certain circles. Lo k'tzira, I said kfira, he woke up. Lo k'tzira v'abtzira הם אסורים בשביעית. Right? לא הקצירה והבצירה הם אסורים בשביעית, אלא הבלטת הבעלות שבאה על ידם. It's not the mere planting and pruning that you're doing. That's not the issue. The issue is that you have to show that it's not yours. מצוות עשה זה של שבירת הארץ לכל העבודות האסורות אינו תלוי לגמרי בזה שהשדה נאבדת או לא. This takes us back to unit number 1, right? Is the shvita on me, on the land, right? Chazon Ish says, if it's on the land, so why didn't you uproot everything, right? Obviously, that's not the issue. The issue is, am I allowed to show my ownership of the land? I'm supposed to release that. כי לא זהו הנקרא שביתה, אלא בעיקר באיזו מידה מובלטת הבעלות על ידי המלך. על פי זה נראה לי ישב מה שהתקשר עם בדין חריש בשל חברו, שאין בזה איסור תורה, כל שכוונתו ללמד הבהמה. Right, so I'm allowed to plow the neighbor's yard if I don't like him, right? If I don't intend on in giving him benefit, right? If I just want, I want my mule to practice, whatever. הקשנו, אז המלאכה שאני צריכה לגופה, לפי הנ"ל מיושב שחרישה ודאי אין בה אלא מצוות עשה של בחריש והקצות לשבועות. So we're not going to go into that specific, the whole חרישה thing, the plowing thing. Glenn said before, pointed out before, we didn't go enough into yet. הוא קנה רק מצד הבלטת הבעלות, על כן כשחורש לא לשם הכשרת הקרקע והכנתה לזריעה, אלא לצורך הבהמה, אין כן מעניין מה שאסרה תורה כלל, שהרי לא אסרה תורה, עצם הדבר שהשדה נחרש, אלא הבלטת הבעלות, וכל שאינו עושה מצד הצורך בקרקע ויבולה, אין כאן הבלטת עניין זה כלל, על כן אינו באיסור תורה כלל. So on Shabbat we have two things, we have the outcome, right, psik reisha on Shabbat, this takes maybe the other aspect of psik reisha. Psik reisha, the other way of looking at psik reisha, is psik reisha is if that's an inadvertent outcome, that's so yeah, you can't ignore the outcome. Not you the person can't ignore the outcome, but halacha can't ignore the outcome, right? The outcome is something that is right. The outcome is part of your action, and on Shabbos that outcome is something that we can't allow. We can't allow that outcome to come of what you did. But Shemitah, the outcome isn't the issue. Shemitah, the showing the ownership is the issue. Now, if I'm doing one thing and something, if I want to take the wood, so I'm not showing that kind of ownership, right? The relevant kind of ownership. Inadvertently, it'll also make the vine grow more. So, Shu Israeli, you didn't do an action that showed that you're interested botanically in this, that any botanical interest in this vine. And that's why it's okay.
So we can't ignore it.
Right? We do ignore. Why? Because we ignore a lot of things. Because meaning because during Shemitah, because we're not concerned about outcomes during Shemitah.
Not Shabbat. That's the Shabbat.
Right. We're not concerned about outcomes during Shemitah. That doesn't bother us. The outcomes aren't interested. We're not, it's really, he says more deeply, Shemitah really is, maybe I'll turn this whole thing over and say, Shemitah really is about where your head is. Shemitah is about whether you're in the mindset of this is my land, to grow. That's the issue during Shemitah. And if there isn't that, everything else is okay. It's a very big chiddush. As I said, some would say kfir day, because you're taking the time of the crop. And based on that, right? Why? What to say? What to go back to the time of the crop and say this is also a mutter based on like kfir? No, but beseder.